It's taking a long time to set up.
All right, so we're live, everybody, and the mayor will start the meeting off when he's ready.
Okay, no problem.
So if you're not speaking, if you would just mute your mic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Evening.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Lucy.
We're live, just so you know.
All right, thank you. Looks like everybody's coming on. We got everybody.
I think you're good to go, Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Well, we'd like to welcome everyone to the City Council meeting of August 18th, 2021. Public comment can be sent to the city clerk at cityclerk@losbanos.org. Can be dropped in the mail at to 520 J Street, Los Banos, California, 93635, or dropped in the water payment box here at City Hall. We will discuss the public forum conditions when we get there. For now, we will start the meeting with before we start the meeting, we'll go to an invocation. Captain Jennifer Cortez from Salvation Army.
Thank you very much, everyone who is online, and also Mayor. Thank you for inviting me to do this time, a special time for prayer. And I just want to read, First Timothy chapter 2, verse 1 and 2. And the scriptures say like this. First, I tell you to pray for all people, asking God that they need and to give thanks for everything, that He is given to us. Pray for the rules and pray for everyone who are in authority. And that's why we come today. And I am reading from this, I use Bible that is said also, and worship God in any circumstances, either good or bad. And now we are going to pray. We thank you, Lord, and we come to you with thanksgiving in our heart, and we are going to pray for all people, for all the nations, and especially for Los Banos. Keep us safe and keep safe all the people who are in authority, the police department, the fire department, and all those ones they are in another positions. We ask you, Lord, for mayor, that, you can give the knowledge how to hold on in everything that he's doing, how to discern the spirit that you are giving to him to do all the things right. And all those ones who are working with him. And we ask you, Lord, to bless the city of Los Banos and all the little towns they are surrounded. And we ask you, Lord, that you can come to us, to talk to us and to let us, know that we belong to you. And in the middle of this meeting and everything that is going to be in the agenda, doesn't matter how big it is and how overwhelming it is. Oh Lord, we put this agenda in your hands. We ask you, Lord, to bless the city and to bless Major, that he's going to conduct, this meeting, and everything that is going to be speak by him, oh Lord, be guided by you and guide him, through the Holy Spirit. We ask you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Major.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask for a quick recess? For some reason, what's being broadcasted on YouTube is not what we're seeing
Okay.
on Zoom. So we're going to have to take a quick time out
All
and
right.
figure out what's going on out there. And when I come back, we'll get started. So
All
I'm
right.
going to mute right now. And
All
I
right.
apologize in advance for the inconvenience. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll do a 5-minute break, I think.
right, Mr. Mayor, we're back live and all is good on YouTube now.
All right, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We will now call the meeting to order at 6:09 p.m. And we would ask Acting Police Chief Hedden to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. Now we will go to roll call. Ms. Maloney?
Jones,
Present.
Lambert,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Lamas,
Here.
Faria.
Here. We have a quorum. We're going to move to consideration of approval of the agenda. We were going to ask for in that approval that we have a little bit of flexibility so that we can, at 7 o'clock, go straight to the public hearing, item 8A. So the plan is to go through items 1 through 7 and then jump to items 9, 10, and 11. No, I'm sorry. Jump to items 12, 13, 14, and 15. So let me be clear about that again. We'll go through item 7 and then jump to our usual ending meeting items, 12, 13, 14, 15, because those shouldn't take too long, and they will also give us flexibility so we can stop at 7 o'clock for the special hearing, public hearing regarding electoral districts. So Chair would entertain a motion to that effect.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lewis, so moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Mayor Yamas here. I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lewis, second by Councilmember Yamas to approve the agenda as submitted with no minor variations. Ms. Maloney, roll call.
Jones,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Lamas,
Yes.
Faria.
Yes. Motion carried unanimously. Agenda has been approved. It is now my honor to present some certificates of recognition. And we've got 2 coaches, Charlie Pikus and Dave Cardoza. And we have 3 players, Haley Moore, Abby Pikus, and Katie Aragona. And if they're all online with us, I will read the certificates of recognition for the coaches. Read like this, presented to the coach's name. In recognition of your outstanding coaching and leadership of the All-American Sports Academy 16V team, 2021 Premier Girls Fast Pitch National Champions. And then that's my signature is set to that for Coach Pikus and Coach Cardoza. Congratulations. And after I complete the reading of the certificates, then if the coaches want to say a few words, we can do that. Our players presented to Haley Moore and Abby Pikus and Katie Aragona read, in recognition of your outstanding talent and sportsmanship on the All-American Sports Academy 16B team, 2021 Premier Girls Fast Pitch National Champions. Once again, my signature is set to those. Congratulations. And Coach Pikus, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, Mayor. Thank you for having us on tonight. I apologize for the background noise. We were actually at a baseball game tonight celebrating. So it was a great honor for us as coaches and these girls to represent Los Banos on our travel team. And the great part was in the national championship game. All 3 of these Los Banos girls accounted for all 3 runs that we scored in a 3-0 win. So Los Banos had a huge impact and was a big difference in us winning a national title. And we can't thank the city council and you enough for recognizing them here tonight. So thank you.
And thank you for your hard work and congratulations. That's just tremendous work. Winning championships At the end of every season, only one team goes home happy. And it sure is nice to be that team. So once again, congratulations and thanks for coming. Our certificates will be, I have the certificates. If you want, I can bring them out to the school. Is at the various schools. You can email me and let me know who's where, and then I'll get those out on my school runs because I'm running around schools as it is. So thanks for joining.
That'll work. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Dave, Coach Dave. Very nice. Very nice. All right. And well, that's a big deal there. National championship. All right. So next we go to the public forum. Members of the public may address the city council members on any item of public interest that is within the jurisdiction of the city council. This includes agenda and non-agenda items. No action will be taken on non-agenda items. Speakers may submit their comments by submitting a written statement limited to 250 words or less by dropping it off the utility payment box at City Hall, 520 J Street, by mail or email to the city clerk at losbanos.org. Comments received will be read into the record during the city council meeting. Ms. Mallory, do we have any comments?
I have received no comments.
Thank you very much. Hearing no comments, we will close the public forum and we will move to the consideration of the approval of consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be voted on in one motion unless removed from the consent agenda by a council member. Ms. Maloney?
Items on the consent agenda are as follows. Warrant numbers 227916 through 228458 in the amount of $1,041,251.63. Fourth quarter investment report for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Minutes for the July 20th, 2021 adjourned city council meeting. Minutes for the July 21st, 2021 city council meeting. Minutes for July 30th adjourned city council meeting. Minutes for August 2nd, 2021 adjourned city council meeting, and minutes for the August 9th, 2021 adjourned city council meeting. City Council Resolution number 6397, approving the annual local transportation fund claim to be filed with the Merced County Association of Governments for fiscal year 2021-2022. City Council Resolution number 6398, accepting a grant deed for a 10-foot public utility easement dedication of approximately 6,378 square feet of land along the western portion of future Badger Flat Road, just south of Travertine Way, and authorizing the acting city manager to execute the associated documents. Anderson Home Inc. City Council Resolution number 6400, approving and adopting final tract map number 2005-05 South Brook at Stone Creek at Los Banos, the Villages 4, Phase 2B, Unit 2, and accompanying subdivision improvement agreement, Anderson Homes Inc. City Council Resolution number 6399, authorizing the acting city manager to execute a service agreement with Vigilant Solutions for automated license plate reader, cameras, and software. And the items are to be approved as submitted.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney. We'll go through council. Please let me know if you would like to pull in the items either for discussion or for vote, a separate vote. Mr. Jones?
No items, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Lambert?
No items, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis?
No items.
Thank you. And Mr. Yamas?
No items. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So, seeing no items being pulled, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Mr. Mayor, Yamas here. I move to approve the consent agenda as written or read.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Councilmember Lambert here, second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Yamas, second by Councilmember Lambert to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Ms. Maloney?
Jones,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Lamas,
Yes.
Faria.
Yes, motion carried unanimously. We will now go ahead and skip to item 12. That's our COVID-19 status update with acting city manager Breezy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I do have a slide for this item while we wait for Lucy to bring it up. I will just say that we are seeing a significant increase in our COVID-related cases in Merced County, and in fact, for that matter, across the state of California through the Delta variant. I'm looking at some of the statistics for California. As compared to our July 21st meeting, which was the last time we had the conversation about this. Thank you, Lucy. You'll see there in the top left, the California statistics, the confirmed cases went up about 700, about 230,000, if I'm doing my math correctly. Unfortunately, the deaths continued to increase, both in California, and if you look over to the right in the Los Banos specific statistics, you'll see that in the last almost month, we have had one additional death caused by COVID-19. Our only metric really that we use or that we have available to compare for where we are now, as you recall, we went back to open status on around June 15th. Prior to that, we were in the colored tier system. So that's what I'm basing some of those statistical data that you see in the column listed under the Merced County statistics. And there's generally two areas that we look at. It's the new cases per 100,000 residents and our positive test rates. And those are the two most common determining factors for California's colored tiered system. As you see there, our positivity rate currently is at 10.10%. That's purple tier back in the old days. Our daily case rate of per 100,000 residents is currently at 22.7 per 100,000 residents. And that is purple tier as well. And that's generally any more than 7 per 100,000 residents gets you to purple tier. So as you can see, in just under a month, we've gone from the orange tier back up to the purple tier with some of our COVID statistics. Our vaccination information, which is in that bottom right-hand corner of the slide, you will see that we have been increasing our testing, the number of doses administered. We're up to about 215 doses administered now. Like I've mentioned in the past, that sometimes means the Johnson & Johnson single shot. That also means the two-shot version, and those are 2 shots, and so that doesn't equal out to 215,000 of our 284,000 people in our county being vaccinated. My last check at the county dashboard just put us just over 31%, if I recall correctly, at vaccinated for the county of Merced. That's a relatively low number. We continue to push out social media posts and other information to encourage people to get vaccinated. There are opportunities out there that are fairly easy to get and come by to get vaccinated. And like I said, we encourage all of our residents to do so. That's all I have for tonight, Mr. Mayor and council members, unless you have a question on the COVID status update. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council, does anyone have any questions? Ms. Lewis?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the primary questions I'd like to ask is there a reason why the county is not pushing out statistics as they were in the past? We were getting on a daily basis what the case numbers were in cities and the county, what color code we were in. And I understand they're not even meeting with the mayors anymore, which, now that the numbers are climbing back up, even though we're in an open situation, I think it's even more imperative now that the county is forthright in coming forward and giving us information at the city level so that we're prepared, we're better prepared to deal with this virus.
Yes, Councilmember, good question. They have moved to, in some cases, monthly updates in regards to the number of individuals who pass away from COVID. But with the uptick, in cases, I do not count out or rule out the idea that they will go back to more frequent testing. We have a couple communications into some of the staff at Merced County asking questions similar to that, not exactly that question, but having to do with some of the case rates and the frequency of the notifications that we're receiving. So I don't have an answer specifically, but I can certainly find one for you, Councilman.
Well, if I may, I'd like to encourage our council members and for audience that are listening to us tonight to not only contact your supervisor for District 5, but also contact the other county supervisors, encourage them to have our health department get that information back out to the public so that we're not having to fish through a lot of information on their website trying to find out what's going on. I think they need to be more open with the public in our county to tell us what's going on, and a once a month update is not good enough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Mr. Yamas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I had some request for information of these deaths. Do we have information as to how many were vaccinated, what the demographics were, the age? Did they have any underlying conditions which contributed to it, or was it strictly from COVID? Secondary is of the people that are coming up positive with COVID, do we have information to know how many were asymptomatic, severe conditions, moderate, mild conditions? Because that's all important information to know so that people can gather that information and make a decision for themselves to what direction they need to take for their family and for themselves. Again, because that provides a more robust picture as to the lethality of this virus. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yamas. We don't have that information. We don't have those details, do we?
No, I'm looking at the county website for their dashboard for COVID, and so just to clarify, some of the updates have moved back to monthly, and that has to do with some of the deaths in Merced County. That information is only being pushed out on a monthly basis. The information on the website is updated much more frequently. It's only a couple days old that 3 or 4 days old that I can see here. But I certainly see your points. We'll make sure to circle back on. We'll make sure to get back in touch with the county with all of your concerns to see if we can get some of that information back to you. And as soon as we can get it to you, we will.
Okay, very good. Let me see here. Do I have any more questions? Do we have any more questions from council of Mr. Breezy? I don't see any hands. Very good. So everyone get vaccinated, stay safe, wash your hands, stay well. So we'll close the COVID update and we'll go ahead and move to the advisement of public notices. We have one report. For that, we go to Community and Economic Development Director Elms.
Mr. Mayor, so we do have one item. I apologize. I had just stepped away from my desk with my iPad. But we do have one conditional use permit. The public hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, August 25th at 6 p.m. It will be virtually. The conditional use permit is for a variation in design standards for grocery outlet. And this is for the new grocery outlet that will be located at 1337 East Pacheco Boulevard. Their corporate standards are just slightly larger than what our municipal code allows. And for that reason, they are required for any variation in signage to go through the Planning Commission for review. So that is what the Planning Commission will be considering on that night, next Wednesday, August 25th at 6 p.m. And the link for the Zoom meeting will be available on the agenda once it is posted this Friday. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Elms. We'll go now to the city manager report. We'll go back to acting city manager Breezy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We seem to be having some internet problems here inside City Hall. I do not have much to report tonight. There is a small ribbon cutting on Friday for the new training tower at the fire department. It's an exciting new addition to the fire department's equipment lineup for training purposes. It allows for a more regional training opportunity to bring in other jurisdictions, train together, work together, communicate together. That's a good thing for our community. And that was all based on Measure P funding, which was voted on by the citizens of Los Banos back in 2004. So we cannot let the moment pass without saying thank you to the residents of Los Banos for passing Measure P back in 2004, because it is done. Great things for our community. We have stayed very close to the 20-year expenditure plan, and we've done a fantastic job utilizing this tax dollars to serve our community. So I just want to say thank you to Mason and the fire department for putting that together. And that is all I have for tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Now we will go to the Merced County Association of Governments, Peninsula Clean Energy and Measure B Committee reports from the mayor. On Merced County Association of Governments, there are some action items on tomorrow's meeting that are discussing and involving the Pioneer Road widening project as that moves forward. Details are available for that at mcagov.org. And you can go to the Agenda Center at MCAG, Merced County Association of Governments website. Go to the Agenda Center and you can read all that information. For the Peninsula Clean Energy, unfortunately, we had hired, Peninsula Clean Energy had hired Jennifer Uribe as a community outreach director. She has stepped down from the position. And so that position has reopened, and they are looking for someone to be a community liaison, someone who can get excited about clean energy and understands the town and can talk to the people. And you can go to Peninsula Clean Energy, join our team, check their website out. If you are interested in that position, they are advertising it now. And then Measure B Committee, that MCAG report involves those funds tomorrow, and that's Measure B project. So you can come to the MCAG meeting. It's actually in person in Merced tomorrow afternoon at 3, or you can contact your supervisors and let them know, or your council members, me, Mike, and Los Banos' representative, me, and of course Supervisor Silvera represents this area, and contact us if you have anything you want us to get to MCAG. All right. So we have a half an hour here. So do we?
Mayor, Councilmember Lewis has her hand raised.
Oh, I didn't see a hand. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not sure if I should address this to you or to our acting city manager, but I believe probably in the next 4 months, maybe, the contract with Peninsula Clean Energy will be coming to the citizens of Los Banos. I'm a bit concerned because there's nothing being pushed forward to inform the public as to what they're signing up for. And I don't want them to be caught broadsided to sign up for something that they're not sure or don't have enough information on. So we seem to be the only one here in the Merced County that signed up for this contract. And I'm a bit concerned at this point that we're not getting enough information to the public to let them know what their options are between PG&E and this company. So perhaps we need to start bringing them in and having them explain themselves, or either, you know, I don't know if we can forfeit this contract and say, forget it. But I don't like the idea of the public having to be have something foisted on them and not have enough information to make a proper decision. That's it. Thank you.
Very good. I will get that information to them as I do sit on that. That Joint Powers Authority Board. It's the PCE board. I don't know if that's not really the Joint Powers Authority itself. They're a member of another Joint Powers Authority regarding this power. Power is very big and complex stuff. I know they're planning to get the information out soon, they're planning to get the information out soon. They know they don't want to confuse the public because the PG&E is going to be changing some things around at the beginning of the year as well, and they want to make sure people are clear on that. But I will let PCE know, and staff will let them know as well that I'd like to start seeing a little more information come out to our citizens so they can be prepared. It is a big decision.
We'll accomplish that, certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Breezy, and thank you, Ms. Lewis. Okay, so now, do we need to take a 25-minute break, Ms. Maloney?
Mr. Mayor, I believe the city attorney would like to get started on item number 9. I think in between property descriptions, we can take a break at 7 to handle that.
Okay, so then we will go ahead and move to item 9 on the agenda. This is the update on the designated local authority, the DLA property transfers. And for that, we will go to City Attorney, Mr. Vaughn.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I do have a PowerPoint tonight. With this item, you got a staff report that goes back and gives you an update on what we have done in terms of the DLA transfers and what we are going to be doing tonight, which is essentially going through each of the properties. We have 2 new councilmen on the council since we entered into the compensation agreement. I'm not going to go over the staff report verbatim. If you have any questions about it, I'm certainly available to answer those. It simply is a recap of where we've been in this process, both a narrative description and a chronological description of what has happened since the city approved the form of compensation agreement back in March of 2020. Suffice it to say that all of the other taxing entities have signed the agreement, and I've been working with the DLA to begin the process of transferring the parcels to the city. There was a slowdown for environmental clearance reasons, which I can explain as we go through the slides, and also a slowdown in terms of obtaining condition of title guarantees on each of the parcels so that the city has done its due diligence and knows what items of record are recorded against each one of these parcels. So I thought maybe tonight, and instead of boring you with the gory details of this narrative, what might be more interesting and more illustrative to you would be just to go through the properties one at a time based on their location. So if we could start the next slide, that would be great. So this is an overall view of all of the properties that we're talking about tonight. And if you can notice that the properties are either yellow in color, blue in color, or orange in color. You'll notice that almost all of the properties are in or about what we call the rail corridor, stretching from 2nd Street, which is those 2 yellow pieces up in the top left-hand corner of this map, all the way down to Ward and Place Road, which are the 2 large yellow pieces that are side by side with Gilbert Gonzalez apartments, along with a little bit of a trail. So the properties we're talking about stretch from the top left-hand corner of that map all the way down to the right lower corner of that map, and there's one little orange sliver up that's a downtown parcel that is hard to kind of see, but it is right about where the Henry Miller Plaza is, and it's actually located on I Street. It's a vacant parcel next to some older buildings, and we'll be taking a look at that parcel in more detail as we go through them. My plan is to, the color coding is important because the compensation agreement that we were required to enter into to be facilitate the transfer of these properties basically sets forth the rules for which we can utilize these properties. The orange properties are what are known as future development properties, and those properties will need to be marketed and sold by the city or somehow developed in accordance with the redevelopment agency planning documents. The blue parcels are the governmental use parcels, and those are mainly along the rail trail, walking trail. You can see they stretch from essentially 7th Street all the way to Mercy Springs Road, and then there's a gap because the trail at that point is owned by Union Pacific Railroad under lease to the city, and then it picks up again towards the bottom right-hand corner, more of the trail that goes along and ends up in or about the Gilbert Gonzalez apartment complex. So those blue parcels are designated for governmental use, which means for the next 20 years, the city is required to put those under some type of use that would be considered governmental. Frankly, those properties are configured as such that chances are they will never be able to do much with them other than to utilize them as they are today, which is a walking trail. The yellow parcels are a little bit more complicated, and those are complicated because they're a hybrid of both governmental use and future development. And as we go through the individual maps, you will see how we have configured those parcels within those parcels as to which portions will be governmental, which portions will be future development. The future development parcels,
Yes,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Vaughn, I don't know, but Deborah Lewis has her hand up, so I don't know if you want them to wait for questions or ask you questions as you're talking.
If you have a question now, Mrs. Lewis, that you'd like answered, I will attempt to do that right now.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. You mentioned that little parcel there on I Street. I assume it's, I don't know if it's facing I, but it's near the blue strip area. But I saw another one, and I don't know if this is just coloration, but it looks like it's on 7th and J.
No, that is the one that's on I. That's a little narrow strip.
Okay.
You can see it. It's right next to, it would be the corner of 6th and I, which would be to the west, and then 7th and I, which would be to the east.
Okay.
And I think there's like a furniture store building that it's right next to, and a restaurant.
Okay.
I think it's right adjacent to where Shiner's used to be.
Used to be the pigeon coop, we used to call it.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. I was confused between that one and another one that's just a little bit northeast. That's a small little square box for the blue linear.
Okay, we're going to talk about each one of those individually so you get a better picture of it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, so if we're going to start up at the top left-hand corner and go through these properties one at a time so you can kind of visualize them. If you can kind of keep this picture in mind as we go through them, that would be great. So if we could go to the next slide. So this is the slide way at if you recall from the last map, it's way up on the left-hand upper corner. And this is what I call the old Pacheco Oil Site, and it's at 7th and G Street. It's towards the end of the rail trail. And you'll notice that that parcel is one of those parcels that is going to be kind of a hybrid. And the portion which is identified as A is the portion that the trail is on, and that's going to be retained as governmental use property because the trail's on it. And then the portion that's labeled B would be the portion that the city would have to designate it, or is being designated as future development. And right now, development plans for the entire parcels are starting to be discussed by staff, but there is no specific use in mind for parcel B at this time. That parcel, which is outlined in blue, will eventually be split to accommodate those two different uses. Next slide. So this is right below, this is a parcel right below the one we were just looking at, and it stretches from 2nd Street to 4th Street. It's a long parcel that follows the trail, and the parcel that's listed as A is going to be what's going to be for governmental use because that's what the trail is on, and then B will be for future development. But you notice that B doesn't have any frontage onto H Street. And I'm being told by the DLA that they're going through a cleanup process for arsenic-related purposes for that long strip that fronts onto H Street. And they are planning on offering that to the city as future development property. So the net effect of that is that would be a nice parcel to have to combine with B and then subdivide that into multiple parcels for future development. If you'll notice, B is somewhat landlocked in that the only access to it is on 4th Street. But unfortunately, those are all separate parcels. So that's just the way it fell. So really the plan for B would be to wait to obtain the frontage piece to the south and then make some plans on how that whole piece would be developed. So that takes care of that piece. The next slide, though, is going to show you some issues that, if you could move to the next slide. So as I was indicating, one of the slowdowns in us obtaining these properties was the arsenic cleanup. And this is an aerial view of that last slide you just were looking at. And that middle parcel that was labeled B has some arsenic issues on it that are hatched there in the yellow. Now it's been cleaned up, and it's been cleaned up to the satisfaction of the Department of Water Resources. However, they required a land use covenant on that parcel, and that land use covenant covers the hatched area, and the covenant is a restrictive covenant that does not allow any type of residential use in that hatched area. Number one, and number two, if there's any construction happening in that hatched area, there has to be management practices put into place to protect workers from dust for the arsenic that remains there. The arsenic still remains there. It hasn't been totally remediated, but it's been remediated to a safe level for all types of activities other than residential use. So I bring that up just so that you have an idea that these properties are coming to you with a history that we have to be mindful of in terms of their potential for development. And the ones that have these land use covenants on them are not going to be able to be utilized for residential type development. So if we go to the next slide. So this is, as we're going, I guess, southeast, this is what I call the Henry Miller Plaza property. It's bounded to the east by 5th Street. To the west by 5th Street, to the east by 7th Street, and generally to the south by H Street. And that's one big long parcel outlined in blue there. And you can see the outline of the Henry Miller Plaza there, and you can see the outline of the rail trail there. And the future use of this property is the parcel A that we will create will parcel off the rail trail, walking trail from the larger portion of the parcel. Parcel B, because the city invested in the Henry Miller Plaza, Parcel B invested money into the Henry Miller Plaza and is being currently utilized for a governmental use. It was determined that Parcel B, as you see on this configuration, would be all for governmental use, which means the city needs to, can use that property for governmental purposes. If the city uses it for any other purpose within that 20-year period, we have to share any revenue coming from that development with the other taxing entities. There is some interest in that corner right now by some local groups, but we have not taken title to it yet. So the interest is very general at this point. Parcel C would be designated as a proposed future development parcel. It has all that frontage along H Street. That little cutout that has the 500 item there, that is the Pet Hotel. And then the corner, I believe, is owned by Red's Roofing for some kind of warehousing their materials. But future parcel C can be used for future development within the bounds of the redevelopment agency plans. I think there's enough flexibility in the compensation agreement to move those lines around should you decide part of B should be for future development, part of C should be for governmental use. But any of those types of changes, we would have to get the concurrence of the other taxing entities who are parties to our compensation agreement. Unfortunately for this piece, it has significant arsenic issues, which you will see on the next slide. So when I say issues, I don't want to indicate that it means that the property can't be utilized. It is going to be restricted so that it cannot be used for residential purposes unless it's cleaned to a higher level than it's been cleaned now. The DLA did clean up this parcel, but they cleaned it up to a parcel that allows for commercial development. And so the hatched areas can be used for commercial development. They just can't be used for residential development unless they're cleaned up to a lower degree in terms of their arsenic content. And like I said, the LUC requires practices to be put in place should there be any construction occurring on those hatched areas. So when I say they have environmental concerns with them, it doesn't mean that they're dirty, dangerous properties. It just means that they do have levels of arsenic that would not allow them to be utilized for residential housing. So that, if you'll notice, I think that the regulating code for the rail trail does anticipate residential uses, and that would be a problem, for instance, on this piece. But it could be used for all types of commercial uses, and we're getting hopefully a written opinion from the water board that it can also be used for recreational purposes. They have informally told us that the hatched areas are okay for recreational purposes, and it only prohibits residential purposes and things like child daycare. So that's that piece. How are we doing on time? I think we're doing.
Can you pause for just a minute? Councilmember Lewis left the meeting and she needs to join us. So just give us a minute for her to come back on.
Okay.
She's having internet issues. Is anybody else having internet issues? Oh, there she is. Are you back with us, Deborah?
I'm back.
Okay.
So this piece is the piece that is getting the most of attention from folks because it's in the center of the downtown. It's surrounding the Henry Miller Plaza. We have, the community center to the south or to the north. And so there's a lot going on there. And it's a really desirable piece. I don't want to leave you with the impression that the land use covenant and the arsenic values on that piece should shy us away from future development or even governmental uses on that piece. I just think doing the due diligence that we need to do on this, we need to know that it's if we ever wanted to make a residential use out of those pieces, there would be additional cleanup that would have to happen first. So that's a real interesting piece right there, mainly because of the Henry Miller Plaza and because of its location close to the downtown. And so I think we're getting lots of ideas from all kinds of different directions on what could be the usage for that particular piece of property. So I think it's going to take some careful planning by the city council as to how they want to integrate that piece into the downtown, for instance, into the community center and the surrounding areas. And like I said, don't let the yellow hatched areas concern you in terms of limiting the potential uses to anything other than residential.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Ms. Lewis has her hand up. It's the only hand I see right now. We just have about 4 minutes. So, Ms. Lewis?
Okay, a very quick question, and I don't know if, Bill, you said anything, but there are two businesses that are on 8th Street. One, I know one is being occupied, and there's like some sort of communication tower near that area where the old Comcast used to be. Is there any consideration with the owners of that piece of property and the one on the corner of 4th and 8th Street as to what they want to do with those pieces of property, especially since this is all government property right here?
Well, let's go back to the previous slide, Sonia, or whoever's running the slideshow. So that shows you the part in yellow is the part that the city's going to have control over.
All right.
The parts that are fronting onto 8th Street are privately owned, and we have no control over future development on that other than through our zoning code. And like I indicated earlier, I think one of them is a pet hotel. I don't know what the ownership of that is, whether that's in town or out of town. And then the other one is an area that's being occupied by Red's Roofing as kind of a staging area for materials. So I personally haven't had conversations with them as to what it is their future plans are for their parcels, whether they want to be part of a larger development, whether whoever's interested in, for instance, Parcel C might want to try to combine it with that corner parcel. But as of now, I have no understanding as to what the owners of those two parcels are thinking about.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe this is a good time to break. That's a major piece of the yes, that's a major piece of the presentation, and we can jump to the redistricting and then come back.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vaughn. So with that, we'll close item 9. It is information only. And we will now move to we'll wait 2 minutes before we go to the public hearing. So we'll take a 2-minute pause.
Just for clarification, are you done with 9, Mr.
No.
Vaughn, or do you need to go back to it?
We'll need to go back to it.
Do you need to go back to number 9?
Yeah, I'm about halfway done when you're done with this next item.
Okay, so I will not close item 9. I will leave item 9 open. And we will come back to item 9 after the public hearing. I misunderstood. Now we play the Jeopardy theme and we'll know just how long to run for our minute break.
Yeah, I see Mr. Scannell is online, and so is Mr. Tilton. And once we hit 7 o'clock, we can turn it over to them.
Very good. So I will go ahead and begin reading the item. Number 8, public hearing. If you challenge the proposed action as described herein in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described herein, or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. And that public hearing will be opening now to receive public input and testimony regarding possible revisions to the Los Banos City Council Electoral District Plan. And we'll go first to City Attorney Vaughn.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is, I think, second in a series of required public hearings that we are conducting as part of our redistricting project. We have with us tonight Chris Scannell, who is our special legal counsel, who, as you recall, we've hired for this project, and he was on board last time. We did this some 6 or 7 years ago. And also Jeff Tilton from National Demographic Corporation. They are our consultants and demographers, and they too were used the last time we did this 6 or 7 years ago, which was actually the first time we did it. And so they're here tonight to conduct or help you conduct the second public hearing. And I believe we have a PowerPoint presentation from Dr. Tilton.
All right, so we'll go now to Dr. Tilton.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Chris Scannell, did you want to say anything before I get started?
Very briefly, we were here in July to talk about the process and the timeline and to start to get feedback on communities of interest. That's really what we're here for again this time. Last time, obviously, it was an introduction, and this time we're looking for maybe a little bit more feedback, hopefully from the public and from you about those communities. We received the initial batch finally of census data from the Census Bureau last week. Those are currently in the process of being adjusted by the state, California statewide database as required by statute. And we're anticipating those being available sometime late September, early October. So we're getting close to the point where we're actually going to start seeing districts be drawn. But at this point, we're still looking for feedback on the building blocks. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff to talk about that a little bit more.
Great, thanks. Next slide, please. Can I get the next slide, please?
Stuck slide.
Thank you. Okay, so as Councilor Scannell mentioned, this is our second hearing of 4. The data were released 6 days ago, the national data, and so California, they tell us between 3 to 6 weeks before we can get the prisoner-adjusted data, so we can really start drafting maps. Then we're going to come back on December 15th. We're going to ask anybody who wants to submit a map to submit their drafts by December 1st, because we need to post those by December 8th, and we will look at those maps, those draft maps, and the intention there is to narrow down the draft maps to two or three, or you could even say 1, as you head into the February 4th public hearing, where the intention there is to adopt the map and also to determine the election sequencing. You can see there are deadlines to submit draft maps. Even though you might pare down maps at that third hearing in December, residents could still submit draft maps all the way up until January 19th. Next slide, please. So again, going over the rules and goals of redistricting for the city, we must follow the federal laws. We're striving to have equal population in each of the districts. We must follow the Federal Voting Rights Act, and we can have no racial gerrymandering. And then we follow that up with the Fair Maps Act, California's criteria for cities. And in this specific order, the draft maps must be geographically contiguous, the districts must be geographically contiguous. And as Councilor Scannell talked about earlier, we really want to try to identify neighborhoods and communities of interest in the city of Los Banos. We also, and we can't divide them. To the best extent possible, we don't want to divide those neighborhoods or communities of interest when we're looking at creating districts. We're looking at also easily identifiable boundaries, things such as highways, major roads, canals, railroads, etc. That might help residents in the city of Los Banos identify which district that they might be standing in at a particular time during the day, and which is their district, most importantly. And then we want the districts to be compact. We don't want to see tentacles going out, reaching into other particular districts just to bypass a group or to grab individuals to create a district. If we can answer yes to items under the federal laws and items under the Fair Maps Act, then we can consider other traditional redistricting principles that are illustrated there. But one thing is for sure, we cannot favor or discriminate against a political party. Next slide, please. So again, we're really looking to try to get data from the public during this public hearing as to what is your neighborhood in the city of Los Banos. Absent of that, it would be ideal to get that information from council tonight as well. And what are some of the geographical boundaries in the neighborhood? As I mentioned, they could be canals or highways, roads, parks, other landmarks in the city of Los Banos. Next slide, please. Same respect with communities of interest. What are some of the shared social and economic interests that folks have in the city of Los Banos, and where are those areas? So we can keep them together to the best extent possible. Or are there particular areas in the city that are impacted by city policy? So we're also going to look at, as we go into December and February, is would that community benefit from being included within a single district for the purposes of its effective and fair representation, or would it benefit from having multiple representation? I use the idea, or to be the example of, say, a retirement community where there are a number of residents, and is that a community of interest that would benefit from a single, in your case, city council member, or would they want to have more than one city council member to represent them in a rather large community like that? But we do know that communities of interest may not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. Next slide, please. So as I shared last time, possible guide into helping us determine the neighborhoods of communities of interest is the general plan land use diagram. That's simply just a guide, nothing that we have to use, just an example to perhaps get some discussion started with both the public and council. Next slide, please. Again, here's an example of renters in city of Los Banos. Next slide, please. Those earning over 75,000, you can see in the purple, looks like right almost in the center of the city limit, 0 to 25% of the community residents earn over 75,000, and you can see the green areas there that would be to the south, and then you have the pocket up there in the north where 50 to 65%. That's just an example of the data that you will receive when you're looking at the maps, the draft maps. Next slide, please. same with Spanish spoken at home. You can see the distribution there. The kind of the central of the southern section of the city, you see 0 to 25% in that particular area that do not. Next slide, please. This where your Latino citizen voting age population currently, well, they reside based on the data that we've received. And this will be helpful as well, is we want to make sure that we respect these communities and that we do not divide them and or dilute their voting strength as we're going through this process. Next slide, please. I'm going to share with you the mapping tools that the city is contracted with National Demographic Corporation for residents to submit draft maps. In all, the folks do not have to use these mapping tools. They can actually draw a map on a napkin. We will welcome them. Next slide, please. As part of it's not necessarily a map drawing tool, it's a review tool that will be available to the residents of the city and council to look at draft maps that have been submitted. There's a column there to the right, that's the layers column, but what it'll do, it'll show all the draft maps that have been submitted, and one could layer those maps on top of each other to look at the differences, etc. But that's just a review tool. Next slide, please. A simple map drawing tool. We will have the Los Banos illustration here soon, once that we receive the actual data from California. But this is really just a map where the city would be divided up into population units. Inside each population unit would be the population figure. And the intention there is for someone who wants to draft a map is to color in, hopefully using different colors to represent the district, color those population units in and basically add the number together to try to get equal population. Next slide, please. Similar principle, except this uses an Excel spreadsheet. Instead of having the population figures in each of the population units, it has an identifiable number in each of the population units. That the individual takes that number and drops it onto the Excel spreadsheet. Tell them the Excel spreadsheet what district is that individual wants the population unit to be a part of. And all the data are just tabulated for the individual, and it really helps with, number one, equal population, but it will also tell other demographic information such as citizen voting age population. The renters example I showed earlier, the language spoken at home I showed earlier as well. Next slide, after a couple of clicks, please. Thank you. District R is a tool that is, I think it's a great tool because it's nice and simple. It requires basically internet connection, and this is coming. This is from Tufts University. They are working as fast as they can to get cities, counties, and school districts as well up and running. They add more and more every day, but with the release of the actual national census data, it slowed down their operation with respect to releasing jurisdiction, but they'll be ramping up again. This is a great tool. If you look on the example of the city of Marina, there's basically 4 items. There's a finger pointer, and that's what basically that is used to move the map. There's a paintbrush that I have circled there, and right next to that is an eraser, and then a magnifying glass, clearly to zoom in or out. And the intention here is to pick a color and draw a district. And as you're drawing the district, you can see that the population it increases as you color over a particular census tract, and it tells you what the ideal population is. In this particular case, it says just under 5,600 people would be the ideal population for a district. So it's really a great tool. The only issue is it's only available in English at this point. Next slide, please. If you have a lot of time, patience, and I want to re-emphasize patience. This is a great tool. It's a very powerful tool. It's available in 6 languages currently, and I know they're beta testing others. This is called Maptitude from Caliper. It will do very similar to what I just showed you with District R, but at the same time, it'll also generate all the demographics when you submit, or excuse me, when you draft a map here. Next slide, please. So we want to encourage folks in the city of Los Banos to share their thoughts by looking at the dedicated redistricting website at redistrictlosbanos.org. And then there's phone numbers and email contact as well. And next slide, please. And so we would like to open the public, or excuse me, we'd like the public hearing to have these particular outcomes. And along, if there are any questions on the mapping tools, I'd be happy to answer those. But that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, the websites to do this map drawing, there's District R, and there's Maptitude, and was there one, NDC, is that District R? That's the same, that's yours, right?
No, if we can go back to the previous slide, that'd be great. Yeah, so individuals will be able to access those tools through this website, where it says draw a map.
Okay.
Once we have the paper tools, those will be on there as well. But District R, right now we have, there should be a hyperlink that will send folks to the District R website. That is from Tufts University. That's not from NBC. Okay. I was going to mention, with District R and with Maptitude, the one that said you need a lot of patience, etc. There are tutorial videos on there as well. And I failed to mention on the Maptitude, there's a robust help segment on that website, so folks don't feel like they're out on an island stranded. Yeah, and then we're going to ask individuals for their name and contact information. The intention there is to make sure we best represent what they want to submit to council for consideration. It will be public record, but I also want to mention that the map naming convention is through numbering, and we will not be using the author of the map as the map name.
So while I'm here, I clicked on to that link to the District R. You said Los Banos is not up there yet?
Well, I checked this morning, it was not.
Yeah. So when can we expect to see Los Banos up on District R?
Well, I wanted it 2 months ago, but we're at the mercy of the Tufts University folks.
And then the other website, that one is up and running, Maptitude?
No, it's not. Same thing will apply. I know that we have, in California especially, we have folks who have December deadline to get their redistricting completed. Okay. And I know they're prioritizing to get those folks set up first. Okay. Sooner the better. Sooner people start getting involved. I agree with you.
Council, does anyone have any? Well, actually, before that, let's go ahead and open the public hearing officially and see if we have any public comment. So we will go to City Clerk Maloney to see, and the smoke has really been getting late. Excuse me, City Clerk Maloney for the any comments in the public hearing.
Let me check email to see if anybody's emailed while the presentation was happening. I've received no comments.
Having received no comment, we will close the public hearing. Council, does anyone have any questions of our guest or of our staff? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and close item 8, public hearing on the redistricting, and thank our guests for the excellent presentation tonight. Los Banos, keep an eye on that website, redistrictlosbanos.org. We need everybody, the more people's input we have, the better job we can do of redistricting for next year's election map.
Thank you. I'll see you in December.
See you in December. All right. Thank you. All right. So We will go back now to item 9 with Mr. Vaughn on the update of the DLA property transfers.
Yes, I think we had concluded with the Henry Miller Plaza piece as we're going from west to east. So if we could start with the next slide, which is the one that has 7th Street, kind of going through it. Right there. Yep, back one. Back another one. Yeah, right there. So this is a parcel that is bordered by G Street to the north, 7th Street to, I'll call it the west, and across the street from the community center. There used to be, I believe, an old warehouse on there. It is color-coded for future development. It's got nice frontage, and that is going to be probably integrated with the other properties along G Street. City will be taking title to all but one of those. So that's a nice future development parcel, keeping in mind that any sales proceeds or development proceeds in terms of the development of that parcel gets split up between all of the taxing entities, the city of Los Banos being one of those. The city's share is 18%. The larger shares are the Los Banos Unified School District and the County of Merced, and then there are a smattering of much smaller shares, all the way down to, I think, the Cemetery District and CCID have the smallest shares, and both of those, I believe, are less than 1%. So that parcel, fortunately, did not have any environmental issues, so there is no land use covenant on that parcel. Next. This is the parcel along the trail, which is immediately adjacent to the one we were just looking at. You can see the one we were just looking at is kind of on the top left-hand corner of this slide. This is, again, a very large, long parcel that stretches from 7th Street to, I think that's the future, I don't know, 9th Street, I think it might be. That's not currently in existence, but it is a right-of-way that's labeled, I believe, as 9th Street. Anyway, that's a blue parcel, so that's a governmental use parcel. Can only be used for governmental uses for the next 20 years. We can use it for any governmental use that we would like. Primarily right now, you'll notice the walking trail kind of bisects the middle of it, but that's actually a pretty large and wide piece of property that might lend itself to some development towards the 7th Street end of it, incorporating the trail there. So that's kind of an interesting piece. I believe that piece, though, does have some environmental concerns. If you can go to the next slide. Yeah, it's along the stretch. That shows you the stretch that's to the south of the rail trail, the walking trail primarily, and adjacent to the rooftop you can see of that big long warehouse that fronts along H Street. Towards the west there, I believe that's vacant, and I was told that I believe that may be for sale right now. Again, don't be overly concerned about the hatched area, only that it cannot be used for residential uses. So if there is a governmental use that can be used along that property, in addition to the trail, that hatched area shouldn't affect that. Next slide. Yeah, here's the 9th Street right-of-way piece. It's labeled as a future development piece, but I believe it's encumbered by right-of-way dedicated to the city of Los Banos. At some point in this process, the city will not only own that piece, will be in control of that right away. And at some point in time, someone's going to have to decide whether or not 9th Street's going to actually punch through the trail there. Otherwise, it's a piece of property that could be developed as well or combined with its neighboring piece. I believe the piece to the left there, which will be to the west, I believe that's owned by John Windecker. So that's not going to be a piece that's going to be coming to the city. Next slide. There's the opposite side of 9th Street that borders onto H Street. I believe those are the two little pieces that caught Mrs. Lewis's eye on that larger map. They show up as kind of like slivers because they're just right-of-way pieces. So they're really alone by themselves. They're not lending themselves to any future development other than to punch a street through there. Potentially the one, like I said, to the north could be combined with an adjacent parcel if 9th Street never happens. But right now, if you looked at the map and the title, you would see that there's a 9th Street right away that goes right through the middle of all of that. Next slide. Here's a larger piece that's to the east of that right-of-way piece there. You can see 9th Street up there at the top. That's another nice large piece for future development. The orange connotes future development. Again, it's apparently someone did some street planning long before I was around, and that fronts onto what is being called the future 10th Street, although that street does not exist below G Street. So that's a future development parcel as well. So it's a pretty large piece. Could be subdivided into smaller pieces for development planning. And again, for some reason, that parcel also does not have any environmental concerns to it. Next slide. So as you know, we're continuing to kind of move eastern. That's adjacent to the one that you just saw with the future 10th Street right there. Should that ever happen, or should the city decide to abandon that 10th Street right away, it could be combined with this piece for some type of future development. Again, that's a clean piece, and that's in the proximity of the future police department site, which is adjacent to it to the east. Again, that's a clean parcel. There's no land use covenants or anything on that parcel. I think the idea from staff would be to look at all of those parcels together and see what type of overall development plan could be used that would suit all of those parcels, whether they be left in the same configuration they are now, or even subdivided into a different configuration for development purposes. But that's for people that have development experience much larger than mine to give you ideas on what could be done with those three pieces. Next slide. So that one though has a little corner of it that's got had some arsenic on it at levels that will not allow for residential development. But that piece, as configured, could be developed for anything other than residential development, commercial, industrial, recreational, those kinds of things. Keep in mind that's a future development piece, and anything that's done with it in terms of developing it or selling it has to be shared with the other taxing entities. Next. This is the trail as it's moving towards Mercy Springs, adjacent to the piece that you just saw. It's probably always going to be a trail piece. It is blue, so it's set to be a governmental use piece for the next 20 years. If the city converts a piece from governmental use to some type of development, then within that 20-year period of time, it has to share whatever profits it makes from that development with the other taxing entities. Next slide. Like the last one, that has a little corner of it it was impacted by arsenic that would not be suitable for residential use, but is suitable for the walking trail. Next slide. Here's a long piece headed towards Mercy Springs that is adjacent to the police department site. It's currently developed with the rail trail. It's designated as governmental use, and it's kind of landlocked there in terms of that. So chances are that's going to be a governmental use property for a long time, consistent with the rail trail that's developed there now. Next slide. And then there's the final piece before we get to Mercy Springs. Again, it's another rail trail piece. Probably the highest and best use for it at this point in time is for the rail trail. I don't know what conditions there are in terms of maintaining the rail trail. I do know that there was some grant funding, Rails to Trails grant funding that was used to develop that rail corridor. So I'm not sure whether I didn't find anything in the title yet that indicated that there were any covenants that it had to stay as a walking trail. But if the city had plans to do something other than a walking trail, we would have to take a look at that. So that basically are all the properties stretching from 2nd Street to Mercy Springs Road that you saw on that larger map. And then the next ones we're going to see are the properties in and around Ward Road. So if I could have the next slide. And that's the trail, walking trail between Place and Ward Road, currently developed. For some reason, that piece was affected by arsenic as well. And if you'll notice, its location just to the north there of that long skinny piece is the Gilbert Gonzalez complex. So that piece looks like it's always going to be a rail trail or a walking trail of some sort. I'm not sure what other governmental use could be put to that. So next slide. And that slide will show you that it entirely impacted by arsenic, although it was cleaned up again to safe levels, just not safe enough to put a residential development on. But it's certainly safe enough for a walking trail. But that piece really doesn't lend itself to any other type of development other than what it's developed as now, it looks like. Next slide. So this one slide combines two pieces. The piece that's labeled A is a vacant piece, A and B, excuse me, is a vacant piece immediately west of the Gilbert Gonzalez complex. The A portion is designated as future development, governmental use, and the B portion is designated as future development. And the configuration was based on the city of Los Banos Water Fund, and the city contributed to the purchase of that entire spot before Gilbert Gonzalez. And so it's a way of reimbursing the city back by deeding it back for proposed governmental use, as opposed to the city having to develop it and divide up that money with other taxing entities. So A is for governmental use of that corner up there for the next 20 years. B is for future development. I'm not sure what could be developed there. Possibly an extension of the Gilbert Gonzalez complex, not sure. That piece has a small arsenic issue on it. C is where our water tank is, and that borders onto Ward Road. And the water tank is kind of that round outline you can see down at the bottom of the piece. That all has been designated as governmental use, and I believe at least the city's been talking about developing for governmental purposes a regional fire training facility on C. So the proposed governmental use would fit in with that. And the city will have control over that if that's what it desires to do with that piece in the future. That's one of the pieces, though, that does have arsenic issues on it too, but if we can see the next slide. But that's the corner piece, has just minor arsenic issues. Just again, I'm emphasizing only keeps it from residential development. It's still, we're still allowed to develop it and do things on it. And we don't have to clean it up any further unless we want to do something from with a residential component to it. Next slide. That's the slide where the water tower is. And you'll notice the entire parcel is hatched. I don't know why. I don't know what was going on there, other than to tell you that the walking trail used to be a rail line, and Union Pacific used arsenic as a herbicide on their rail lines, and somehow that arsenic migrated to this parcel. Again, it's at a level that it can be developed. It could be developed for that future fire training facility. Certainly can be developed for expansion of the water tank. It just can't be used for residential purposes without additional cleanup to get below the residential levels. So those are all of the properties. Now, I've been working with the DLA to have those properties transferred to the city, which has been a slow process because of the cleanup. All of the properties that we viewed tonight that have a land use covenant and are hatched, they have all been given clearance by the water board in terms of environmental clearance, that there's no further action necessary on those parcels for arsenic purposes, other than if we want to do something with them of a residential nature. And so we do have a no further action letter on all of the parcels that would not require any further cleanup, assuming we're not going to use those for residential purposes. So if you want, one of the things you need to take away from tonight is that each of these parcels kind of have unique characteristics in terms of their what we can do with them in terms of future use, future development, and governmental purposes. And they're all unique in that some of them have some issues in terms of environmental concerns that someone developing those pieces is going to want to look at before they were to buy it from the city or before even the city developed it. So that's kind of like a basic overview of all of the parcels. On your agenda following this agenda item number 10 and 11 are going to be actually actions to accept 2 of the parcels that we viewed tonight. And I'm anticipating within the next 4 months or so, we should be taking title to the other future development parcels. And the last parcels we're going to take title to are the rail trail parcels. So the reason it's kind of moving slow is because we're vetting those parcels in terms of what title exceptions they have on them. And especially the rail trail properties are full of all kinds of easements and things that we've been taking a look at to make sure that we understand what other things are going on with those parcels. But I would guess, and my goal is by the end of the year to have taken title to all of the parcels. And then I would say the next step, or the step that we could be taking right now, is to try to take a look at the goals of the city in terms of how we want to develop all those parcels once we take control over them in a coherent fashion. So I'm available to answer any of your questions.
Okay, council, does anyone have any questions of Mr. Vaughn regarding item 9? You're going to raise your hand. Ms. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Vaughn, on the first page of the staff report, just for some of the new council members and for refresher to the rest of us, could you explain to us why the county and the school district get more percentage in funds than the city of Los Banos or any other units that get money?
So when so that's part of the redevelopment agency law. When the redevelopment agencies came into existence, those were parcels that were tax sharing parcels with basic entities within that area, within the redevelopment area. And so when the state formed the redevelopment agencies back when, those agencies had what are called the ability to receive increments from those parcels, and those increments are those percentages. I don't know exactly why historically the percentages are higher, but I believe it has something to do with how we ultimately divide our property taxes. Those are very consistent with how we divide our property taxes now. So I believe it has something to do with that formula that existed before the redevelopment agencies came into existence. And then after the redevelopment agencies were dissolved as part of the redevelopment agency law, those increments flowed back to what they were. So that's my understanding of why, for instance, there are different increments for the different agencies. So you're right, the County of Merced, the Los Banos Unified School District have the biggest shares. And I think that's historically, they get the biggest shares from real property taxes. So I think that's consistent with that.
Thank you very much.
If I jump in just there, I think that the very large portion Merced County gets, that's the way it was before we negotiated a number of revenue sharing agreements, I think, that have brought Los Banos on different properties, newer acquisitions and whatnot, newer developments, a higher percentage. But this is, I think, based on those older percentages. Would that be right?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions on that? All right. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. It's your night tonight. We're going to close item 9.
Yeah, I'm hoping that helped clarify. I mean, we've been talking about DLA properties, and I know we have some new council members. I just thought we needed to clarify what we're talking about when we say the rail trail properties. Like I said, the ones of major interest to the city would be certainly the ones that we talked about first, the ones between 2nd and 7th Street. Incorporates large pieces of property that are going to be used governmental use and future development centered around the downtown. So gives us a kind of, I think it gives the council kind of a perspective when they're looking at these properties as to what we may want, or what this council may want to give staff direction in terms of the future development and uses of these properties. So I hope it's been helpful in kind of getting a global view of all of these properties that we're eventually going to have title to.
I remember we did a big vision for the rail trail years ago with a design property design company, building design company. And some cool ideas came out of that. I know we still have those in the files if anyone wants to have a look.
Well, there is a regulating code along the trail from that I believe is maybe 10 years old, and it has some very interesting concepts in terms of the uses along the trail. I'm not sure how consistent that is with the the land use covenants restricting residential use. I'm not sure how appropriate it is now in terms of the uses that are the visions of the city, but we certainly, that is the regulating code right now for these properties. So as the vision starts getting put together by the city council as to what the council would like to do with these properties, we need to keep in mind that we have a regulating code that's still on the books as well. So,
okay. Mr. Vaughn, are you done with the PowerPoint, or do you want me to keep something up for your next
you know, for the benefit of the next presentation, if you could just leave that the first map that came up.
Okay, so we will go ahead and close item 9 then. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. And we're going to go back to Mr. Vaughn for item 10 and item 11. Item 10 is the consideration of approval of City Council Resolution number 6401, accepting the grant deed from the Los Banos designated local authority as successor agency to the former Los Banos Redevelopment Agency to the City of Los Banos, 1.5-acre parcel located on 2nd and G Street, public walking trail and neighborhood park, APN 025054007. And we go back to Mr. Vaughn.
Thank you. So this item is centered around that piece of property that's way to the top corner of this map. It's that rectangular piece that borders along 2nd and G Street. It's like it's like very last parcel there, up there on the left-hand corner of this map. It's what I know, I refer to it as the old Pacheco Oil parcel. And if your staff report shows it, and that this is one of the parcels that is, yes, it's going to be, part of it's going to be for future development, the B part, and A will be incorporate the existing trail as governmental use. So the B part is the part that the city will need to have a vision of as to what type of development they may want in that area, on that particular parcel, in terms of the entire area. And as a future development piece, the B piece, once it is developed or sold to a developer to develop, the proceeds get split up amongst the taxing entities that we were just discussing in the ratios that we were discussing, or the percentages that we were discussing. So I have vetted that piece through a title guarantee that we got through Trans-County Title to check for any exceptions to title that might be of concern to the city. I did not see any. Mainly things of record are things that the Los Banos Redevelopment Agency did, but I did not see anything of record that would keep a developer from taking title to that property and developing that property. There are some historical Henry Lux easements, drainage easements that go through all of these properties. They don't identify a specific spot on any of these parcels, but they're attached to all of the parcels. But I don't believe that is a problem for anybody in terms of future development with B. That parcel had some underground petroleum tanks on it, and that parcel was cleaned up by the DLA, and the DLA secured a no further action letter from the Department of Water Resources confirming that the property had been cleaned and that there was no further environmental action to be taken on that parcel. And because it was a petroleum issue in terms of underground petroleum tanks, there was no arsenic issues on that one. So there is no land use covenant on B in terms of arsenic. So the DLA is ready and they have adopted a resolution transferring that property to the city by grant deed, which is also a part of your packet. And in order for the city to obtain title to that property, you have to adopt a resolution to accept that grant deed and accept it for recording, so that someone just can't grant deed a piece of property to the city without the city accepting it. So the action for tonight would be to, by resolution, accept the grant deed, transferring that property from the former Los Banos Redevelopment Agency through its successor agency to the city of Los Banos. And it's the entire piece in blue. And at some point, the city will split it via another deed to approximate those red lines that you see on that parcel. So I have nothing further on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Council, does anyone have any questions of Mr. Vaughn? Go ahead and use the hand raise. If not, Chair will entertain a motion to approve resolution number 6401.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, what was that resolution number again? It's not on the agenda.
6401.
Oh, I see it. I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 6401 as read by title.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Lamas. So I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lewis and a second by Councilmember Llamas to approve Council Resolution number 6401. Roll call, Ms. Melanie?
Jones,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Lamas,
Yes.
Faria.
Yes, motion carried unanimously. And we will go now again to Mr. Vaughn for item 11, consideration of approval of City Council Resolution number 6402, accepting the grant deed from the Los Banos Designated Local Authority as successor agency to the former Los Banos Redevelopment Agency to the City of Los Banos. 7.85 acre parcel located on H Street between 4th and 7th Street, public walking trail and the Henry Miller Plaza, APN 025-072-036. Mr. Vaughn?
So basically the same story with this parcel. This parcel is down from the one that you just accepted the grant deed for. It's what we refer to as the Henry Miller Plaza parcel. You'll notice it's a very large parcel. You don't see large parcels like this anymore within incorporated cities. So it's a very large parcel. It spans from is that 4th Street to 7th Street, I believe. And it borders H Street. And there to the north is the community center. And then there's a number of warehouses also to the north, and then ultimately the fairgrounds. Bisecting this parcel is the walking trail. You can see there towards the northern portion of the parcel. Towards the eastern portion of the parcel is the Henry Miller Plaza with 6th Street dead ending into the plaza, and then that corner there, which actually is a fairly large piece as part of B, the corner of 7th and H. So this again is divided into A being governmental use, B being governmental use, and C being future development. So all of the same rules apply for these in terms of governmental use and future development. If the city were to convert a governmental use property into some type of development that isn't governmental use, then the proceeds of that would have to be shared with the other governmental entities if that occurred within the first 20 years. Of the compensation agreement, which we're now into like year 2, I believe, the compensation agreement. There has been some interest in that corner down there, but that's for a future council meeting. At some point in time, this parcel will be split approximately like you see here, and there may even be future splits to accommodate future development on C. This parcel does have some arsenic issues, particularly in the area of the C parcel, and then a little piece on the B parcel, but those have been cleaned up to standards that would allow for governmental use and commercial development. They just will are restricted in such that they cannot be used for residential uses. Like the other parcel, I ordered a conditional title guarantee from Trans-County Title. What I saw were a number of things which were old documents that the redevelopment agency had generated. There is no redevelopment agency anymore, so those documents are really of no concern. And there was an old pipeline easement that I think it was a Standard Oil pipeline easement, and then that universal Henry Miller drainage easement that's like on every piece of property in the downtown. So I didn't see anything of concern in terms of the title that would keep somebody from developing that property, or that should concern the city in terms of developing part of those properties for governmental use. So it's my recommendation based on that go forward, and that's one of the pieces that the DLA is ready to grant deed over to the city should the city desire to accept it. So we're requesting that you take the same action on this piece that you did with the previous piece. The city will then, once that's recorded, be in control and can start taking steps on planning out what it is, the vision for that piece.
Okay, very good. So essentially, saying, oh, my computer just froze up here. There we go. The same situation. DLA, RDA land coming back to the city. So this is a good thing. Any questions from council? All right, Chair will entertain a motion to approve City Council Resolution number 6402.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lambert here.
Thank you.
Make the motion to approve Resolution 6402 as read by title.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Do I have a second?
Mayor, Councilmember Lewis, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Lambert, second by Mayor Pro Tem Lewis to approve Council Resolution number 6402 as read. Roll call, Ms. Maloney.
Jones,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Lamas,
Yes.
Faria.
Yes, motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn.
Yes, I've just been reminded that in the previous presentation that we didn't talk about the parcel that's on I Street. It's that little sliver parcel. I guess we could do that now. I don't know where that is in the slideshow, Lucy. Might just kind of highlight that one. For some reason, I didn't see it come up, and maybe it's not in our slide presentation, unless there's a slide after this one. This one right here. I'm sorry, I missed that. This is the downtown piece that we were talking about earlier. You'll notice on I Street, it's a future development piece. It's between 6th and 7th Street on I. There was an old decrepit building on it. The DLA knocked over the building. It was full of asbestos, and the property's been cleaned up, and it's just now a dirt lot ready for somebody to be interested in developing. So I'm sorry I missed that piece. So that's all of the pieces now.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn.
I would just note that as we get these conditional title guarantees, we're kind of at the mercy of Trans-County Title. They're pretty slow at bringing them to us because these properties have had a lot of history on them, dating back to the late 1800s. And so their title searches are taking some time. And as I gave them kind of a priority of searches, so they're going to be grouping them, and I'm expecting to get a number of more of those title searches in the near future, within a number of weeks. And as I review those, I will be bringing those to you for acceptance, assuming those title searches show up without any issues on them. So we're kind of going to be doing these in batches, and it's my hopes that the city could have title to all of these properties no later than the end of the year.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Lewis, you had a hand up, or was your question answered? Or?
Yes, I was able to figure it out, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you again, Mr. Vaughn. So that takes us all the way to the end of our council meeting, to our council member reports, item 16. Tonight we start with Councilmember Yamas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Had a couple items. I want to say that the Parks and Recreation Department put on a fantastic movie in the park. Mr. Heim and his crew, workers, personnel over at the Parks and Recreation Department set up a beautiful area for the residents to go see the movie. They had some vendors, they had some games, they painted the basketball court. And so it really was a good night out to have the community out there, and everybody had a good time. So thank you again to the Parks and Recreation Department. Second item is, as you know, that we had a very catastrophic event over in Afghanistan. We have over 40 to 60,000 American citizens who at this point have no way of returning to the United States. And I just pray that we have a plan to extricate all our United States citizens. And I just hope that we unite in that effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yamas. Mr. Jones.
No report tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Lambert.
Nothing to report here, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. The only report I'd like to give is in regards to the highway dedication of 152 at the east end of our town and the west end down by the college to Joe Cox. And it was quite an event, and to hear the multiple and ubiquitous amount of things that he did in this town to assist our community, as well as his involvement with the school district and how he fostered that, and also his dedication in the FFA program and how he brought recognition to Los Banos in regards to the dairy community. It was quite knowledgeable, so I was honored to be able to attend that, and I'm sure pretty soon we're gonna, I haven't been out on the highway yet. I was told that those signs were going up pretty quickly. So they may already be there. If not, they'll be going up very shortly, I'm sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Well, we have a lot of fires, terrible fires in the state right now. Los Banos has a fire engine with 3 of our personnel helping with those fires, and we want everyone to stay well and stay safe, take care of each other. It's a very dangerous business. We've never seen fires quite this big, even last year. So and be very careful when you're out in the wilderness, because we don't need to start anymore. It's terrible. On the positive side, we had the National Night Out. It was a beautiful event. Thank you. All our police department, Parks and Rec, and all our departments were putting that on. We represented, all our departments were represented that evening, and we had games and fun and food. It was great stuff, and music. And I want to thank the police department for the honor of singing the national anthem. That is the greatest honor I have as a singer, is when I'm able to do that. And as a mayor, it's extra special. We had the beautiful movie night at College Greens, as Councilman Yamas mentioned, and we had the beautiful honoring of Dr. Joe Cox, who was a very good friend. Now we will go to the closed session. And the closed session today has two items. The first one is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant paragraph 4 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9, one potential case. Our second closed session item today is public employment, city manager recruitment pursuant to Government Code section 54957. And we will report out after the closed session. Thank you very much for joining us. Once again, congratulations to our ball team there. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just give me a minute to make sure that the chambers is shut down before we get moving on to the closed session. So just give me a minute.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. We've come out of closed session. We have no reportable action, and we have direction to staff. Thank you. We're adjourning them. Actually, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lewis, so moved.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Second?
Mayor Yamas, here, I'll second that.
Thanks. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lewis, second by Councilmember Yamas to adjourn the meeting adjourned at 10:50. Oh, roll call vote. Sorry about that. Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Yamas?
Yes.
Maria? Yes. Unanimous. Carried unanimously to adjourn the meeting at 10:54 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Good night.